Greetings again everyone, and let's get straight into testing the living daylights out of the brand new Sony a7C Mark II camera, coming soon to a camera retailer near you. Allow me to let you in on a secret. As well as loving full-frame cameras in general, I am crazy about miniaturization, seeing them getting as small as possible, and this is the successor to one of the smallest to ever hit the market. The original a7C had a similar physical form to Sony's aps-c mirrorless cameras, except a bit thicker, and while it was technically a very nice camera, its features are getting just a little out of date at this point, so in accordance with their strategy of getting as many cameras as possible onto the market as often as possible, Sony have brushed it up. Possibly one of the biggest upgrades is the sensor. This Mark II camera has inherited the respected 33 megapixel backside illuminated full frame sensor of the a7 IV camera, a great step up from the original camera's 24 megapixel sensor. It also now has the far more powerful Bion's XR processing engine, AI processing for subject recognition, upgraded dynamic range and image sensitivity, upgraded in-body image stabilization, now up to 7 stops equivalent, as well as a bigger viewfinder. Nice. It also has better shooting buffer memory, more natural skin colours, stepping away from Sony's traditional yellow skin tones, or slightly yellow anyway. It has an improved and easier to use menu system, flicker reduction for shooting in artificial lighting conditions, new creative looks, as well as the auto-framing video options from the ZV-E1 camera, which some people doing certain video work may find useful if they need a fast workflow, although it doesn't work miracles. It now has active image stabilization for vloggers, more on that a bit later, as well as 4K 60p video recording, albeit with a slight crop. Plus a whole load of new extra features that I'll barely have time to cover in this short video. Basically, it's now very highly spec'd, essentially an a7 IV in a smaller body. The camera's price will be around $2,500 US, give or take a little bit. Check down below to see the exact amount, or £2,100 here in the UK when it hits the market very soon. And I'd like to thank Sony very much for loaning me one of these for a short time for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. The build quality of the camera is, as expected, gorgeous, tough, good looking, not too heavy, nondescript, non-attention grabbing, which is really something you want for street photography or guerrilla filmmaking, but also wedding and portrait photographers should enjoy working with a smaller camera, as they help to put your human subjects more at ease. Who wants a giant camera being shoved in their faces after all? And a small camera is also good for travel and landscape photography, so you don't have to take a big heavy thing climbing mountains around you. Here it is against my older a7R III camera. As you can see, the a7C Mark II is hardly slimline. It's when you look at things head on that you see the real difference. Although the viewfinder has been shrunk way into one corner, I was still impressed with it. Comfortable enough to use and offering a large and pretty high resolution image when you look through it. Its new and bigger 0.7 times size is lovely and clear. The a7C Mark II is a bit more controllable now as well. It has a front dial as well as a rear one, and the top dial, while initially set to exposure compensation, can be customized, and those are really welcome additions. The camera is dead quick and easy to control. I do wish they had added an autofocus joystick though, they really are so useful. In my tests, the camera's large Z-type battery was nice and powerful, lasting nearly a day's shooting for stills and plenty for video. It's rated for at least about 700 shots. Mildly annoying to professional photographers is the single SD card slot. I know Sony are trying to save space in this camera, but that is something that will really put off the highest level photographers. The lens's maximum burst rate is 10 frames per second with autofocus and auto exposure, which is perfectly fine, although sports photographers will of course prefer a camera a bit bigger and faster than this. The screen, again absolutely fine here, bright, high resolution, fully articulated with an intuitive touchscreen implementation. A fully articulated screen is a bit slower to use than one that just flips up and down nice and quickly, but it's obviously more flexible. The camera's autofocus is its star attraction though, I think. Sony have been improving their technology a lot since 2020, and this camera's AI-powered autofocus system will accurately latch onto just about any subject you could think of, with lots of extra options to tweak the way it works for people who want to dig a bit deeper. Eye detection autofocus, vehicles of various kinds, humans, animals, insects, it's all there. Honestly, for such a small camera, the focus system is as simple to use as it is almost overpowered, easily on a par with Canon and Nikon's top cameras, and I had great fun testing it out. So those are some of the camera's features. Let's take a look at its image quality. I've never tested this particular 33 megapixel sensor, so I was keen to see what it could do. As you can see, Sony's JPEG engine is on fire here, as it's capturing virtually as much fine detail as the RAW image, although I'd say the sharpening could be a touch less aggressive. In the RAW image, you can actually catch a bit of moire there too. Anyway, let's look at high ISO noise, and this is where the camera, while still doing a great job, falls more in line with the competition. As you can see here, ISO 100 to 800 all looks perfect. ISO 1600 is still looking pretty fantastic. At ISO 3200, noise is beginning to emerge. ISO 6400 gets noticeably noisy, and the JPEG engine is throwing up some false colour now. ISO 12800 and beyond just starts looking dreadful, to be honest. So the camera is delivering fantastic detail in your images, but for a full frame sensor its noise levels are fine, but nothing to write home about. But of course, it's always worth remembering that, generally, images scaled back to the same size as a lower resolution camera will look just as good, so you're not missing out on anything here. I ran out of time to test dynamic range formally, but in my sample pictures I found that even in JPEG images I was easily able to lower highlights and boost shadows with everything still looking great. Oh, and the camera offers JPEG, RAW, including lossless compressed RAW, and HEIF format support as well as HDR shooting, so it's pretty future-proof here. Let's see about video quality now. Here is some footage shot in 4K at 25p. I did the same test at 60p, but the video quality was about the same, apart from a small crop. Anyway, at ISO 100, we are seeing tons of fine detail being captured here, with no strange artifacts or problems. It's only really at ISO 3200 that we're beginning to see some noise emerging, really. ISO 6400 is starting to get noticeably grainy, and, well, it's all downhill from there. You can take things up to ISO 25600 and even beyond, but nah, not usable really, except in an emergency. Still, this is very good video quality. If you want more than this, then Sony's equally small-sized ZV-E1 camera may be more up your street, as it can offer much better high ISO video quality. The camera can also shoot at 100 frames a second in 1080p high definition, by the way. When it comes to rolling shutter, it's somewhat noticeable in HD, and unfortunately quite strong in 4K, as you can see here. However, if you shoot in 4K cropped mode, it's slightly reduced, although obviously still there. Let's take a look at image stabilization in video mode now. Here's some footage taken at 16mm, firstly without stabilization, and now with normal stabilization, which definitely helps to a small extent. And now with active stabilization, which crops into your video, but which I actually thought did a great job of smoothing out your image. So that is a feather in a camera's cap for vloggers. And, well, that's about all I've got for now. I didn't really have very long to test this camera this time, but admittedly, I grew to like it pretty quickly. Its unique selling point is of course its small size, although there are a number of other small full-frame cameras on the market admittedly. Because of its thickness, it doesn't really feel like a small camera in your hand, to be honest, but it certainly does free up more space in your camera bag and looks much more inconspicuous, and for all kinds of photographic jobs, a camera with a low profile is genuinely desirable. and the technology inside it genuinely packs a real punch. Professional sports and wedding photographers and high-level video makers will need better SD card and video options, and I'm really feeling the absence of an autofocus joystick, but everyone else will have an absolute blast, particularly landscape and street photographers. It's a nice option for portrait shooters too, offering more natural skin tones than previous Sony cameras, and with the smaller camera being less intimidating. It's fast and snappy with great image quality, good video, tons of the most up-to-date features and amazing autofocus. It's pretty impressive that Sony were able to squeeze so much into it, quite frankly, so the camera does definitely come recommended. It'll give you lots of fun.